In the gym and in the car, with our advice you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes, and talk about our sexy dates. We host events and go to clubs, but most of all we're still in love. It's getting hard for this to rhyme, just as well 'cause it's bed hopping time. Hello and welcome to the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name's Mr. H.
I'm Mrs. H.
Thank you for joining us today. As we're recording this, it is but a mere 2 days before Mrs. H's birthday. She has been out today day drinking in the afternoon, so the quality of this podcast may vary.
This is in the hands of the gods.
Hands of the gods.
The gods of Bacchus.
Well, that's something, you know, at least they were in the hands of somebody, right?
Do you know who I went day drinking with?
Yes, I
do.
do.
Shall I tell you?
If you follow our TikTok, you'll know.
Well, there you go. I went day drinking with the esteemed Dr. Grant.
And how was that?
What, Dr. Grant?
Yeah.
Always very knowledgeable about dinosaurs.
Okay, that's good.
So she featured on episode 69
She
of
did.
our podcast.
Indeed.
Yeah, paging Dr. Grant.
There we go. And you had a nice afternoon pre-drinking, like going out
Probably.
for pre-birthdays?
I did.
I think what happened is that you came home. It's a relatively
Go
early
on.
evening.
What happened?
You had your dinner cooked for you already before when you got in. Nice, I'm good like that.
That's no different to any other day, whether
Right.
I'm day drinking or not, right?
Exactly. And then you curled up in my lap and fell asleep.
I did, like a cat, like a drunk cat.
Purring
I'm
away.
I wasn't drunk. I just want to balance the scales here a little bit
Okay.
of justice. I wasn't drunk, but day drinking does give you a level of something. Call it wild, blank, daytime inebriation
Maybe.
that only day drinking can give you.
Well, yes, let us not dwell too long on that. For if we do, then you may well start sleeping again.
Like the drunken cat.
The Drunken Cat. Sounds like a great pub that you'd go to all the time.
Anyways.
Yes, moving swiftly
Yes,
onwards. The
yes.
things that we need to update you on before we get into the main
what are you gonna
thrust
update
of
me
this.
on?
Well, the first one is that, you know,
It's my birthday.
by the time this comes out, your birthday will have gone and passed.
I've gone another year around the sun.
You've got another year around the sun. We'll have celebrated. It's going to be fantastic. You'll have had loads of
Excellent. I can't
presents.
wait.
You'll have to do disappointed present face lots and lots of times.
I never do that. Well, I have done that, but not from you.
Oh, good. That's true. The other thing is that our social for Southampton on the 12th of October has indeed sold out.
It's
And then,
like triple sold out.
yeah, we then added some more tickets and they sold out. And then we added a few more tickets and they sold out. So we are now completely and utterly
sold out.
sold out.
Yeah.
Which,
That's on the 12th of October.
Which is cool. Well, we don't need to keep repeating the date because
It's
if
sold
you don't
out.
have tickets, you cannot come along. We're very, very sorry. But we're really looking forward to that. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in good time.
Excellent
But
stuff.
I wanted to talk about this episode.
Good.
And
I'm
what it's
glad
about.
you do because I need to know what we're talking about.
You have no idea, do you? You genuinely have not a clue.
I just turned up.
I have told you about this episode a number of times.
but
I have mentioned it in our Discord.
Okay.
And in fact,
I don't read the Discord.
I know
babe.
you don't, not very often, unless it's the Pokemon corner, in which case you're very, very
You know
engaged
what? I
with it.
think I do know what it's about.
Go on then.
Shall I elucidate?
Do you want me to do it? Just
Well,
to save
shall
you.
I tell you what I
have
think
you just
it's
read
about?
the top of the iPad?
No, I can't read that from here, and I can't
Okay.
read your writing. Your word mayo looks like mango.
That's typed.
Oh. Well, even less reason for me to understand what's written down. I think this is about the unexpected challenges of the lifestyle.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, that's because it was in a chat, 2 of our chat groups just today as well.
10 points to Gryffindor.
So while we've been having lots of discussions about the great things about like the swinging lifestyle and ethical non-monogamy and all that kind of stuff, there's also a load of challenges that can pop up. And one of the things that I wanted to get to was talking about some of the surprising challenges, some of the things that when you enter, you don't necessarily think that they're going to be a thing, something that's going to challenge you, something that you're going to be surprised about. We're not going to the depths of room
Like a
101.
stealth challenge.
No.
But it just crept
no
up
one
on you
wants stealthing.
like, oh, I didn't think this would be a thing, but it is.
It's sort of
Yeah?
a bit like that.
All
Like a
right,
challenge that knocks you sideways without realising that it was coming out to get you.
Stealth.
Yeah. So we asked our patrons, we asked our Discord and some friends to kind of get in touch and let us know about some of the things that they thought were a challenge. Now, a couple of people have sent us some audio messages, but if you want to listen to them, you're going to have to wait all the way until the end of the show.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to save those for the after music bit.
I shall never hear them.
I don't think you've ever listened to the show in your
That's
life.
not true. Do you know what I do occasionally? Just to keep myself real.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I'm not going to name names in terms of who sent these things over and who's posted them in our chat and who's got in touch and stuff like that. But I thought it would be useful to talk about some of these things and have a few comments on them and see how we go. And if it gets dragged out to, a couple of episodes, so be it. But I thought this would be something
you've got a lot of stuff, Mr. H.
I do. Well, this is, I think...
Have you got challenges?
Have I got challenges? Yes.
Or is this about what other people have said?
Well, this is what other people have said.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
of course,
you got challenges?
Of course I do have challenges every time we go anywhere, because just getting you out of the house is difficult enough.
That's
as
not
it
fair.
sounds.
You can't use me.
I will use you later.
Oh,
it's a noise you'll make.
You can't use me as a challenge. I'm not some weird obstacle course.
Yeah, you are. I'll complete it. No problem, mate. Complete it. So I thought I'd read out some of the comments and we'd react to them and talk about them. And
it will be real-time reaction.
They will be, because
me.
you've not seen it anyway. So the first statement is how clicky it can be at times.
Oh.
And I agree. I think it can be clicky.
As a perception, yes.
Yes.
I'm not saying it is, but I think perception can be. You feel like everyone is just already knows each other and everyone is already in some crazy friendship circle and you can't infiltrate that.
Yeah, I think it can feel that way. Most of the time, I'd say that's not actually really true. And if you go and introduce yourself to groups, people generally be quite happy to say hello and welcome you into the space or whatever. And I'm thinking, if you go to a club and there's a group of people, they're all chatting, they're like, and you feel, oh my God, they all know each other and they don't want me there. And it's quite natural to feel that way, I think. But actually, if you go and talk to people, generally they let you in. Now, we have been to places where it has been a little bit more clicky than normal and people really don't tend to interact with others.
And you've said yourself, you've commented yourself that sometimes things feel that way.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to know whether it genuinely is or not. But I think if you try interacting with people and they don't really interact back, then they're either not interested or it is indeed a bit clicky. So it's kind of tough, but it is a bit of a surprise, especially as you start to kind of understand whether it is a clique or a clique or whichever one you like, or whether it's just people that have only just met each other and just started talking and you just weren't there for the start of that conversation.
I feel like that can be sometimes prevalent in group settings as well, in social chats.
Yeah.
If you enter a platform that's set up solely for an event that you're attending.
Yeah.
Any event really. Sometimes it's like a Discord or a Telegram or something. And again, it can feel like everyone already knows each other because they're all just chatting and replying. But again, it could just be being friendly.
Yeah, and I think it can feel like it's tough to break through that wall. And particularly if they've been, or many of them have been to an event before and they've been through an experience together and they're all referencing the same things, oh my God, I'll never break into.
I'll never be friends with these people.
But often it just takes a little bit of patience and introducing yourself and making an effort. That's what I'd say. Anyway, next one, right?
All right, okay.
The gatekeeping. And by that, they mean you are not a proper swinger, hot wife, rigger, whatever, until, unless you do whatever.
Till you've gained your badge from doing X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
right?
You are not a proper swinger because you don't full swap the whole time.
Oh, God, unless you've done a daisy chain in an orgy with 17 people, you're not a swinger.
Until you fucked 150 people, woof, you're not a proper...
I see, right.
I think this really takes me back to the early days of
I know
our
what you're gonna
experiences.
say.
And I think we met people and indeed hung around with people because they were the sort of, I guess at the time, a little bit of the nicer people that we met, which says a lot about some of the people we met on our early adventures. And they were very much, you're not a swinger unless you're full swap. You're just not. And you're not a swinger until you do this.
And I still hear that, actually, from
And
people.
it's just not true.
Like, if you only soft swap, you're not really a swinger because you don't fuck.
Everyone
Brilliant.
does this in their own way, and it's perfectly acceptable to not be an expert. It's perfectly acceptable to make up your own rules. Now, granted, some rules people are going to be confused by, like the no kissing thing. But, people deserve their own interpretation of everything, right? They deserve their own approach.
I completely agree. And actually, some people never even manage to get to any kind of sexual, actual physical interaction.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just want to keep it social, flirty, and just float on the peripheral of, what they deem to be something additional to their relationship. And if that's just flirting with people, sharing a kiss maybe, and that's it, we never actually progress to anything physical. It doesn't mean that you're not expanding your own relationship in some way. But I know what you mean about this, this desire to put definitions on things, and you can't progress to the next level up if you haven't done this. It feels really, really strange.
It all feels like we're under the same umbrella. That umbrella's fucking wide, but at the same point, we're not one of those people stood outside getting wet. So whether you're in the inside of it, right in the middle, and you're completely dry, or whether the water is splashing you from the edges, it doesn't matter. You're still under the same umbrella. Does that work? I don't know if that works. Probably a load of horseshit.
Beautiful metaphor. You should get that on a t-shirt.
Maybe you're one of the umbrellas, something like that. You're the end of the umbrella. Anyway, the other one, next one. My partner has been really put off lately with the amount of effort it has been taking, to the point where she has deleted all of the apps and left it to me to do the admin. Can have weeks of messages when it comes to sorting out even just a social. People disappear. We get that people have a life away from the lifestyle, but just be honest. Either say you're busy or say you're not interested. Simples.
Right. Okay. So is this basically the high effort sometimes it takes to actually get to a point where you arrange to meet somebody?
Yeah, I think there's the effort that you get, the conversations, the messaging, the texts or whatever that you get to the point before you meet someone. And then sometimes you get all the way to the point where you're going to meet them, and they pull out and they don't appear.
Hey.
And that's just, and we've had that done to us. And
tons of times. Of course we have. It's frustrating.
It is.
But also, yes, people have lives. And sometimes life just gets in the way of arrangements, no matter what you do.
But I think that's fine if you're honest and open. So
if you're honest, yes.
So if, something awful happens or you're not well or whatever, I'd value someone's input and contacting us and their approach much more than someone who just disappears and ghosts you.
100%.
And, whether they don't want to meet you or whether they're just too embarrassed to say that they forgot, missed it or whatever, or they got held up or whatever it might have been, I'd much rather someone be honest. And if they're not into you, just say. But
I agree the transparency of why the meet is not happening would be really helpful. And sometimes it would be nice to understand if it is genuinely just because they just change their mind or don't want to meet you.
Yeah.
But genuinely, I think people really do try and fit this in around some really busy lives. We've encountered that a lot.
It's costly because if you've got kids, if you've gone out, if you've booked a place, it might be deposits, there's babysitting, there's all sorts of things, pet sitting, whatever, to get to a meet. And then when someone doesn't show, without giving you an excuse, you're just left there kind of going, oh. And of course, we always say that, it's if that's what happens, then you still get a wonderful evening with your partner. But you can't help but be disappointed because you were going there for a reason, which was to meet somebody else, and they've not shown up.
I agree. I think the frustration is probably more heightened if you have had to invest like part of some money to actually get to the point of that.
Yeah.
If you've paid for a babysitter or a hotel or something, it must be really, really frustrating.
And that is definitely one of the surprising challenges, and that you think that people are going to be like you, that they're going to turn up, they're going to be honest, they're going to say, and if they're not feeling it, they're going to be, they're going to tell you. But actually, like anything in the world, the more people you have out there, the more chance there are of dicks, and the more chances there are of you encountering someone behaving this way. And it doesn't matter who you are. We've spoken to all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life, and they've all kind of had this, which makes me wonder who's actually doing it, because all the people I've spoken to have had it happen to them. But, it's one of those things. All right, next one. Ready? The negative impact on vanilla life, as at points it's reduced time we've spent with friends and family. Also, how tired you can be after a night's out, as they always seem to finish at 4 a.m.
Oh, no, ain't that the truth? She says, sitting here yawning.
Yeah. I mean, the late night things, the 4 a.m. finishes and whatever. We
still struggle with that.
Yeah, we still
never seem to be able to. Well, occasionally we do manage to make the moons align and start something before 1 o'clock in the morning. And at that point, we're all high-fiving going, oh my God, we managed to do this before it got too late. But generally speaking, it's you're in it for a late night.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I think the impact to your vanilla life, I mean, this can take up your spare time, just trying to contact people, keeping up with all the messages, going out, meeting people, all this kind of stuff. It will reduce potentially the time that you have with friends and family. Now, you may see that as a bad thing, or you may see it as a good thing, depending on what your family's like and depending on how old your kids are and how needy your pets are with this kind of thing. But it can definitely hit you around the side of the head, because it can be quite addictive, because there's a rush, there's a thrill, it's exciting. You're doing something fun, you're going on adventures, then you're fucking knackered because you've been up all night and then you don't want to socialise. This all stacks up, and this surprised us, actually. I think this really did surprise us.
Oh my God. The late night thing, I completely relate to. However, I will say that the unexpected flip side of that is you do get a little bit of a smug glow about yourself and think, I might be tired, but I really had a good night.
The old, how was your weekend?
Yes, exactly.
As you get into work
Exactly.
and everyone's like getting in the coffee and they're sitting, so what did you get up to this weekend? And you're like, wouldn't you like to know?
But it does give you a little bit of a glow of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Because you are actually living life to your max.
Much like myself, I can give you a glow of satisfaction.
Yeah, but you're squeezing every last drop of fun, really, out your weekends sometimes, which can be really exhilarating.
But can be fucking exhausting as well.
Also exhausting.
Yeah,
so
especially if you have a few, like
on the bounce.
Like one night over a weekend is manageable, like every week or whatever. But if you do like a full weekend, like a takeover event, and then you do something, and we had a couple of weekends in a row recently where we were out the Friday and Saturday, and then the Friday and Saturday, and I was like quite knackered come the second Sunday.
You were quite knackered.
Yeah, I was quite knackered. Yeah. I mean, I was still ready to let's do more stuff. This is great. But even it was taking its toll on me, and that's rare.
That is rare.
Yeah, I'm getting old.
You
That's
are
clearly
always fun, Bobby, aren't you?
Not always, just most of the time. So, okay, this one is, we found it challenging keeping lifestyle vanilla separate. We've told no one about the lifestyle, and that can be tough at times. But for us personally, we don't want to lose friends that we've had for 30 plus years, as they wouldn't understand.
Okay. I mean, how do they know they wouldn't understand?
Well, I think there's...
But also, I understand the reticence, right?
There are certain friends and people that
I know. It's just sad that judgment exists, and that you fear you would lose friendships over something that brings you so much happiness. But I understand the reticence to reveal something that could be detrimental to friendsdships.
I mean, we've both lost friends over this.
No, I agree. But we've also gained lots of friends.
We've gained much better, more awesome friends.
Yeah, we have.
But I think there is always that risk reward. Same with family as well. You could tell people about it, but you just don't know how they're going to react. No. And some you can make a pretty good judgment call on. Like, for example, your mum.
Right.
You wouldn't have told your mum. Yeah, right. Like,
Lord, rest her soul. No, I would not have told my mum.
Because would she understand?
Would disowned me.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
right?
I know. The generational impacts of learning something that you just not going to get your head around.
Well, there's that.
She'd never have got over it, no.
I don't think it would matter necessarily the generational difference. It's about attitude. Like, my mum, would have been absolutely fine. But, just different family members would react in different ways. And kind of roughly how some of them might take it. Or you get a sense of some of them will be cool, some of them won't be. And that's the risk. So I get that. And that's really challenging because you kind of, once you get into this exciting world and you have like great success, then you want to tell people about it. Like you want to share your enthusiasm.
Well, they might ask you why you're so busy all the time and why you look so happy.
Well, yeah. And if you've like had a great weekend, even if you don't want to give someone gory details, you want to talk about it because it's been great.
Yeah.
And, if you've got this great new hobby that you're partaking of, then actually it's
sad that you can't reveal things like that.
So we got one that's on a similar sort of theme. I think our vanilla friends are absolutely amazing people. I don't want to risk losing them, but would love to share this amazing part of my life. We've dropped little teasers out to some friends recently to test the water, had some positive and some negative reactions. So we've decided not to risk saying anything just yet. And I totally get that. I think that, that is a sensible way of doing it. and kind of getting it out there. And I think it's important to realize as well that people's immediate reactions aren't their long-term reactions. No. And that works both ways. Like someone who's like seems cool at first may think about it and be like, no, I can't be on board with it. And other people might be like, it's shocking, and maybe they'll come around. So
no, I understand that. But best to test the water.
Yeah.
Or use like hypothetical sort of teasers, to like mention things that you might have watched on TV or something and say, oh my goodness, how
did
about
you
this?
see that swinging TV show starring those nitwits?
What do you think of that then?
Yes. Wasn't he really hot?
But, sometimes even opening up a dialogue for those, those conversations can be quite telling.
Yeah.
And it might be a good way to pave the way and open up people's minds a little bit. And then in the future, it may not be so hard for them to hear.
Yeah, I think, but are muggles going to catch on? Like are they, as soon as someone says, hey, did you watch Open House? They're going to be like waiting. Like they know what's coming next. It's not actually about the program at all. It's about your lifestyle that you're trying to talk about. Have I told you about the good book? Something like that. Okay, all right. So I think for me, as a single guy, the main issue is how time-consuming and expensive it can be to be on all the apps and messaging and attempting to make any connections with new people.
I mean, the single guy thing in itself is difficult to navigate. And there are some really nice single guys out there.
Yep.
The problem is, though, they have a bad rep. Like single guys, I think, in the lifestyle can have a bad rep.
Well, I think...
And it's hard. It's hard, I think, to navigate and not get just immediately shut down or turned away.
Yeah, I think the difficulty that you've got is the volume of single guys out there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And I suspect that the actual amount of dickheads is it's the same ratio as couple dickheads
probably.
And single lady dickheads. It's just the number of single guys on the apps is exponentially higher.
No.
And as a single guy, and if you're one of the good ones and you're trying to make your way through this and build connections and have fun times and all this sort of stuff, you've got to work even harder. You've got to be on all the different apps. Because if you want a chance of connecting with people, there's Fab, there's Swing Hub, there's Spicy. You've got to cast your net. You've got to go to different events to make connections, and you've got to keep up with it, and you've got to continue to be present.
Prove that you're not a dickhead.
Yeah. and the same is true, I suppose, of everyone within the lifestyle, but it's doubly so, or whatever percentage more for single guys in it. And this stuff gets expensive, and going to the socials and traveling and hotels and all that sort of stuff adds up. But it's particularly expensive if it's just one of you bearing the cost of that.
Yeah. And also I think sometimes entry fees for single guys is heightened in terms of expense anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of places will charge
the unfair
a bit more.
thing. I mean, I'd much rather they maintain or monitor the ratios rather than charge people differently, because I think ultimately everyone deserves to be treated fairly, but you have to be mindful that couples, generally speaking, a massive sweeping generalization, tend to be looking for other couples or single ladies.
Okay. I mean, yes, it's a sweeping statement.
I think when you're looking at it...
There are some people looking for single guys.
There are, but as a sweeping percentage, I think most tend to be heading that way. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people looking for single guys. There absolutely are.
Yeah, of course.
And there's entire nights dedicated to that at clubs or whatever. But I think certainly on our early travels, we didn't really encounter anyone that was like a hot wife or was looking for single guys particularly.
Not very often, no.
It was really rare. It wasn't until much later on in our adventures that we just sort of discovered and sort of started to understand more about it. And yes, our exposure does, like when you buy a red car, you see 99% more red cars. So, when you've got friends that operate in that process, then you see 99% more, right?
Yeah.
But I do think there is that sort of pairing thing that clubs are trying to do and trying to not overload that balance. But yeah, so I totally get that it can be more expensive. The other one I'm going to say that we've got another single guy comment. I'd also add that some of the attitudes towards single males could be improved. If they're vetted well and are on a probationary period, then they should be okay, Also, I had some homophobia rear its ugly head at times too. Now, I know this is coming from a guy that is a bi guy.
Okay.
Bi guy. So, I think some of the attitudes could be improved. I think that can be difficult because if your experience of single guys is of the wanking dead and the zombie shuffle wankers stood around your bed or whatever at a play event, then of course it's going to be tainted.
I agree. It's really hard not to just assume that perception about everyone.
Yeah.
Agreed. And like we say, we have met some really genuinely lovely single guys.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the ones that you often do come across when we get tons of messages from idiots you think, come on, dudes, you're not helping the cause here. It's difficult, isn't it?
It really is. And I think, the attitudes could be much, much better. I think the reality is that I think we expect people to be good. And when they're not, it kind of drives your thought process towards that group.
Yeah, it reinforces that negative trait, doesn't it?
It does. But I think the difference is that you need to champion the good ones. So when you do meet them, even if they're not your jam and they're a good person, it's like, that's
I know a great single guy.
Exactly that. And in terms of the homophobia around bi guys, I mean, we've seen that on accounts. I know people that won't play with a bi guy. We have met people,
even extends to couples who have played with bi men. They won't play with both.
They won't entertain the idea.
Like, come on.
Yeah, and that's a real shame because bi women are sort of celebrated in the lifestyle, and bi men don't tend to get as good a rep, and it's a real shame because I think there are lots of couples who are looking for that type of thing.
Agreed.
There we go. So, the worst thing is the fabmin, aka keeping in touch with all the apps and comms channels. Bloody love that there are options, but it's a nightmare to keep on top of.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, you don't, and this is the thing, right?
Yeah, but I get overwhelmed just by the sheer volume of all the things.
But this is so.
I know you're going to say
many hands
Mr.
make light work.
That I don't really even scratch the surface when it comes to navigating or managing any of those, and I agree. However, there's so many.
Yes, but you don't. Since you don't reply to any. You don't.
No, I
so
don't.
There's an email that's been sat on our inbox for bed hoppers for 2 days where someone directly refers to you. Now I know you've been in the inbox because you've listened to things that have been sent our way.
Okay.
So, and I'm like, well, I shouldn't reply to that email because it is directly sent to you.
I'm going to have to go back and check.
Oh, and that's the thing.
I can't actually remember.
I know you can't remember, and I know you pick and choose. So,
I don't.
Right, you 100% do.
Every now and then I just skim read things.
If
and
someone
then
messages
I'll
us,
come back to that later, and I don't.
Right. If someone messages us on a chat group and says, right, I've got some gossip, you are on it like a fucking tramp on chips, as you would say.
Shush you.
But if it's just general like chit chat, you're like, yeah, this is nice, whatever. I don't really and then someone will mention your name and you'll do the looky eye gif or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then unless it's something of interest, then you promptly fuck off. So
I think you're okay. I think you're just branding me with a horrible image here.
Well, the reality is that you really don't do the fat
I don't deny there's an element of truth in there.
But an element of truth. So
but in my defence,
there is no.
There is a little defence.
Right,
I do genuinely find it really hard to keep up with the volume of things.
But then when you have spare moments,
I know
you don't do it.
No, I don't.
So you've had like a day off today, right?
Oh,
and you
you're
had
really
the morning
busy.
off. No, you laid in bed until like 11 today.
It was lovely.
All right. And I know it was raining, so you didn't do your run. Fine.
Oh.
So you could have responded to a number of things.
I know.
You could have talked to me about the podcast, but you don't.
Oh, you were busy working.
Not all the time I wasn't. Anyway,
Hey.
So I understand the problem with Fabman, and I guess if there's just one of you, it's even more difficult. And I appreciate it if there is just one of you because I am in the same boat when it comes to...
I think a lot of partners probably find themselves alone navigating these shark-infested waters because a lot of women I speak to share the same view that it's actually a little bit off-putting sometimes and they don't tend to be involved. And I'm not saying that's right. I share that. I think people share that view.
I don't think it's exclusively women. I think just there's normally one in a couple that is less inclined to message. On the rare occasion we've found two people in a couple that don't want to message and just want to meet up and like get all that shit out of the way when they're face to face. So, but I know what you mean. It's normally there's one person within that doesn't like doing it. And,
I think so.
And this is the thing. So if you're a single person, I can imagine trying to do this. If
really
you don't
hard.
like it, it must be really, really difficult. So the next one is that bi women are almost expected.
Lasai.
Lasai. Well,
Lasai. I think one of the things that we encountered early on in lifestyle was that it was almost a given that people would assume women in a partnership were bisexual.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a view that is was incorrect in any way. It was genuinely, obviously the women are bi.
And I think that it was a bit strange because
agreed.
You the guys aren't assumed to be bi.
No.
It is merely the women.
I know.
But also I'm quite aware that you've sort of perpetuated that. And I know that
because I'm bi?
Well, in a way, yes. Because if a couple that we're going to meet, if the woman isn't bi, you'll pretty much 9 times out of 10
now
reject that
couple. I knew you say that, and that's not necessarily the case.
Pretty much. I didn't say with 100% certainty, but
I go into things like this and assess people on a merit basis. I do not go in there and go, right, if a woman's not bisexual, I'm not interested. That's not true. I accept that I'm hopeful. Maybe I go in with a level of hope that there would be.
We have had this conversation a number of times, and I generally, if the woman isn't bi, so they message us. They message us right on Fab. So I've obviously replied to them a number of times,
right? And
then I show you the thing, and hey, they'd like to meet up, and you look at it, and if the woman is not bi, broadly, you become very deflated with it, and your interest goes out the window.
Well.
This is true.
However, it's a different view than the assumption which this individual is making, which is that there's an expectation that women in a partnership, in a lifestyle, are bisexual.
Yes. So it's a different point. What this person is saying is that bi women are almost expected.
Yeah.
And
I know that's not
what you're saying is that
the case.
Bi women are wanted.
For me.
Yes, that's the thing. So,
but I accept that not everyone is. However, I think we've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of women who are interested in being bi-curious, bi-playful, by whatever you want to call it, whatever they want to refer to.
Even met some lesbians who were less interested in me for some unknown reason. There's nothing for me there at all.
Oh, just a friendship.
All right, let's move on. So,
all right, okay.
The tribe finding is definitely tricky. It's taken us forever. It's tougher when you have young children and less time to devote to socialising as well. Look, mate, it took us 2 years to find anyone resembling a tribe. So, whatever. I get this. I really get this. And I think...
Yeah, you don't just come across a tribe. You have to...
You can.
Yeah, but what I mean is it does take time to find what you vibe with.
Yeah.
Right?
And we've seen people that have kind of shacked up with one group of people and they've totally adopted their behaviours, their style, their approach. Mm-hmm. I remember in our early days, there were a relatively younger couple that hooked up with the sort of older couples that were very much of you're not a swinger unless you fuck constantly. And they got absorbed into that tribe. Great, fine. They found their thing. It wasn't for us. But their behaviours, subsequently at other events and stuff, has been absolutely of that mentality.
I have a school of hard fuckery.
Yeah, it is. It's true. It's,
yeah. No, I know.
So, you can find your tribe and you might find it on your very first experiences, which is what happened to them. It obviously worked for them, but it wasn't for us. And as a result, it took us much longer to find the people that we'd want to hang around with.
Agreed.
We're very fortunate now because we've met lots of people. We kind of know what we want because we've gone through the ringer a bit, as you'll have heard on 190 odd episodes or whatever it is. But also we've kind of established a bit of our own tribe and we know the local ones that we're happy to associate with and the ones that we're not.
Agreed. And, everyone has their own values and to which they kind of live by, and it is hard sometimes to find people on your wavelengths. That doesn't mean you have to get involved with people who don't align themselves to your values. You just have to take the time to find people who do.
Yeah.
And you will find them.
Agreed. So, while the lifestyle is more open than the general vanilla world in our experience, I still struggle with some of the less tolerant sides, whether that's homophobia or those that look down upon those who aren't about just fucking or criticise hot-wifing other ways of swinging that deviate from the way they think the lifestyle should be.
Okay.
So, I think we've covered a bit of this already, to be fair. So it's,
just the unfair, judgmental
there's still judgment there. There's still... And I think sometimes you can't help those judgments, particularly if you're coming into this as a newbie. You look at it and you go, oh, that's not for me. Oh, why would anyone do that? Because you just don't understand their approach and you've just not experienced it.
I think ultimately, though, everywhere you go, you're going to meet people who you don't agree with and they don't necessarily see things the same way you do.
Yeah.
That's just life and that's just humans, not seeing eye to eye on things.
Yeah.
It's just perhaps these things may feel heightened and more exposed because you are sharing so much more of yourselves and each other, maybe, and you're putting a bit more on the line kind of to be stand up and judged. So it can feel really hurtful, I think, when people then they do make you feel unwanted, and it's difficult because you do still encounter things like this, as I said, in just day-to-day life.
Yeah, and I think there is something in that. You like what you like, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not what you like, then you really don't like it. If that makes any sense. Like, it's, hey, we are in the UK. We like the UK. We like England. England is great, or whatever it might be. But France, those guys, they're horrible. And it is that kind of, you like what you like. And because it's not you and your group, we automatically dislike the other lot.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of that. There is a bit of the swingers versus hot wives, a bit of the polyamorous lot versus the swinging lot. And whilst these things should not exist, and there's no reason for there to be rivalries or people looking down their noses at stuff, you can't help it. In the same way that, we do it ourselves, and that, if you're part of the just fuck approach, we probably look down our noses a little bit because that's not our approach.
I think everyone just has unconscious bias anyway, don't they? It's just, you're just hardwired to adopt some level of unconscious bias to any situation you're presented with.
I'm indeed hard and wired. You
have to really work hard to kind of not demonstrate that in everything you do sometimes. I mean, just in regular life.
So like the 9 protected characteristics or whatever it is. Yeah. We need like the swinging version of that, the 10 lifestyle or ethical non-monogamy protected characteristics.
Yes.
Something. Maybe we'll get onto that. We'll get our friends at Maslow to do something probably.
Yeah.
So there are lots of supportive, inclusive, liberal, progressive folks in the lifestyle, either LGBTQ plus or allies, but there are also quite a few bigots. I include the I'm not a racist, it's just a preference brigade. Preferences are fine, but it is how you approach it, I think. It's a bit of a microcosm of society. There are closed-minded folk everywhere, and some are in the lifestyle. Surround yourself with the right people in or out of the lifestyle. Well, that just reaffirmed what we were saying, really, I suppose. I like that. Well done. Good comment. I enjoyed it.
It was just said in a very erudite way.
It was.
Well done,
and it was
wrote that.
read even better. Okay. So privacy and the fact that it is due to stigma, the cost of events and wanting to attend but having other priorities, keeping up with the Joneses. Also, the pricing around events regarding gender, sexuality, relationship status, emotions.
All right. So is this all wrapped up into one thing under the cost umbrella, maybe?
Well, this is lots of different things. The aforementioned single men challenges, so much we would like to do, but not enough time. So the pricing around events is a frustrating one.
It is frustrating.
We witnessed a club at New Year's Eve a while back, not allowing a throuple in, right? And not being able to just charge per person.
So you're okay. So
there's that. I think.
Are you talking here more about how unexpectedly costly things are, or the pricing structure? All of the
not
things. Welcoming.
Yeah, all of the stuff.
Kinds.
So so first one, privacy. And the fact that you have to keep things private due to the lifestyle being a stigma.
Right.
I understand. I agree. We are very fortunate in that our work has been supportive about us being out, but we know that not everyone gets that privilege.
No.
And that's awful that people have to hide themselves. Flip side is, of course, someone will be screaming, but I like hiding it because it's a rush and it's a sexy little secret.
And that's great.
And I get that.
But some employers have morality clauses. And, depending on the nature of the job that you have, sometimes it's just never going to be possible, is it?
The cost of events and wanting to attend but having other priorities. I mean, that's tough. I mean, this is an expensive hobby if you do lots of different things. And, you can go all the way out to cruises for a week, to Mexican stays, to, even just our stuff where we try and minimize the cost, but it's still expensive if you don't have the money, like everything, right?
Well, yes, it is. But I recall in the early days, we immediately kind of fell into this kind of, oh my goodness, this is so expensive to do this properly, or to enjoy it, to really enjoy it fully. You could end up spending a lot of money on this.
I think
we dedicated the whole episode, I think, to it in the early days.
I think one of the things is that when you start doing this and you have a good time, you're like, wow, this is good fun. Let's do another and another and another. Let's do this, but let's do more. Let's do a weekend now. Let's do a...
And it's expensive.
Yeah, and it adds up. Let's get friends around the world. You do that and you go visit other people and you're like, oh my God, we've spent a fortune. So I 100% agree.
100%.
It gets expensive. And keeping up with the Joneses, I get that. The pricing stuff I touched upon and that's not fair. And this goes back to the single guy pricing and stuff. That's really, really sucks, and it really pisses me off.
It does, but I think though within all that, you've just touched on something around maybe the value of events, maybe, and sometimes why I think people are surprised that events are as costly as they are. And it's hard sometimes to understand, I think, what goes into building those and the value for money that you're getting.
I agree.
But I think maybe in the past we've spoken to Kate from Wanderlust about this topic, haven't we? In its own entity, because it is a big one.
I mean, this goes back to the value, as you said, and I think it's like buying a video game, right? You spend 70 quid on a video game these days and you might get 40 hours of entertainment. For that, it's like not too bad for your bang for buck.
Right.
But the fact is you're still laying down 70 quid and it's still a lot of money, but you have to look at how much enjoyment value you get out of it. Are you going to make the most out of it? And if you have to understand how much effort goes into producing that thing. And the same is true of, like, as you said, the events. And, you know, just taking a typical, you know, overnighter, you know, there's if we're doing a hotel takeover, there's the hotel costs, there's the insurance, there's the transport,
security,
there's the maintenance of the chat groups, there's the emails, there's the time taken to talk to people, there's all of that stuff, there's damages costs, all this.
It's huge, isn't it?
And then when you throw in goodie bags and extras and drinks, and also having a nice time and dressing up yourself, that costs a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It all stacks up from the other side, and all people see obviously is the
output,
is the end cost. And you know, I think there's a lot of value to be had, but sometimes it's hard to get sort of your head around that stuff. Yeah. Particularly if, you know, I understand lots of people are struggling financially. We're quite fortunate at the moment. We're not struggling by any stretch.
No, I realise we come from a place of privilege in that respect. But equally, if you're going to bite the bullet and go for an event, I think it's just, you're going to have to accept that to put on a good event and to get a good night out of something, unfortunately, it's just going to cost money.
So, once close vanilla friends now come across as having the most boring lives, and I fear we really make less effort with them than we used to. This probably is a part of a more broad recalibration that our time and the lifestyle has caused. What was once a wild fantasy is now something that will likely happen every month or so, and I sometimes worry about how desensitized to new sexual experiences we are getting. Which is a fantastic comment. I think the vanilla friends thing, let's pick that a bit, because we certainly found that. I mean, our vanilla friends became frightfully...
Not as exciting.
Frightfully dull. But for the most part, I think it felt like when we entered this, lots of our friends were getting into the stage where they were just having children.
Maybe.
Or they were hooking up, or they were settling down into middle age. Yeah, they were, right?
Go on, yeah.
And the conversations, you know, we had these amazingly sexy adventures, and we were up in the middle of all sorts of things going on. And then the following weekend, you're sat there at your friend's party, and they're talking about their garden shed, and another one's talking about how they're brewing beers. And it's really hard to reconcile that with the excitement that you had the previous weekend, particularly if your sexy friends are off having another adventure and messaging you while you're at that party or whatever. And you've got the FOMO, but you're like, well, I'm just sat here and we're just chatting to people.
Talk about fences.
Yeah. Great. And you start to realize as well that the conversations you have with your old vanilla friends are often quite closed. And, you know, you kind of go, well, the conversations I had with my sexy new friends were much more open. So it can be really, really hard to want to spend time with those people. And I'm sure, you know, we have some really lovely friends who know and still chat to us and are still great. And it's
They're
fantastic.
never going to speak to you about the fence again now, are they?
Probably not. But it is really, you know, it depends on the friendship. And the people that were always on the peripheral of that being very boring anyway will probably seem 1,000 times more boring now because of the excitement that you're leading in your life. So I think there is that thing that you need to keep in mind. I think, you know, and you, as a result, you really have to push, like any relationship, to keep it and maintain it. And that's hard if you've got all these sexy things that you could do over there when your friends back over here are just sort of, you know, doing their thing, right?
Question for friends that know.
Yep.
So if you are lucky enough to have good, trustworthy vanilla friends who you shared information with, and you do end up inevitably falling into that zone of, I want to talk about my stuff because we are friends and they know about it. How quickly do you find that they, like, not looking comfortable, but kind of fall into Well, anyway, it's nice to hear about this, but I also don't want to hear about it too much.
I think there are some friends that want a splash of detail or an overview, and I think that's fair. They don't want the ins and outs. I think, and some people will want the funny stories or whatever, and that means more to them than this, because they don't necessarily want to hear about your sexy times. There's not a bragging rights kind of thing. Certainly not with my friends anyway. So I think I tend to keep things very high level unless they're asking for that level of detail. But I do have some really good friends that will ask some questions about it and want to know a bit more, but not a lot more. And I think, that's the mark of someone that's, that still values you as a friend, but also doesn't want to know, how many people you put your dick inside of that weekend or whatever. You know what I mean? Right. Okay. Next one. So, did we cover the end bit? Sometimes we're about how desensitized to new sexual experiences we are getting. And what was once a wild fantasy is now something that will likely happen every month. So there is something about that. You do chase the dragon, right? You're like, wow, we've done this. Can we?
Yeah. You remember how quickly we were so fazed by the thought of full swapping? Yeah. Way back now. Yeah. And we were like, oh my God, we can't do that. It's like way out there in terms of sexual encounters. And we stuck to the soft swap for like a year or whatever. And then when it eventually happened, like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
It kind of becomes very quickly, you normalize it, right?
You do. And I think you're always chasing that next exciting thing. And sometimes the drive is to try more and more wild things because that's the way you seek it. But sometimes you go a different direction and you do something that's more personal or more intimate. But it's such a hard balance, because I think you could forever go down that, keep falling down that path. I think the trick is to enjoy it and savor it rather than chase the big all the time.
Yeah, I think it can be different with different people.
Yeah,
rather than finding a new, different experience you've never done before.
Yes, I want my 40-person orgy now. My 50-person.
DP, we've done that about 15 times now. It's time to try something different.
That's just a Tuesday, Sharon. Just a Tuesday. Yeah, I think this.
But it's going to be different with different people. So maybe that's how to keep it alive.
Yeah, maybe. So, genuinely, my biggest downside is dealing with being a functional human parent after a late night. I'm asleep by 10 most nights, so even socials are pushing that. That and lying. I'm very open with most of my friends, but there are ones we haven't told about, and our main source of childcare, parents-in-laws. There are only so many weddings, hen-dos, engagement parties, big birthdays I can fabricate.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely.
Yeah, I totally...
And I think we hear this from a lot of people, a lot of friends that will share how difficult it is to keep validating your excuses for not being around or missing Aunt Flo's, garden party or something because you've got something better to go to. And, I really emphasise with people having to try and find childcare and actually functioning for small children is, I don't envy you at all. Like, good on you. Even just functioning, getting up in the morning and going to work is hard.
It really is. And I think with the lifestyle stuff, we've tried, we've experimented a bit and sort of said, okay, right, we're timing wise to get the, let's all play and be done by 11. And sometimes if you're pretty good at it, you can do that and be quite efficient, but it can feel a little bit prescribed.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I don't like sometimes the perfunctory nature that takes. It's almost like, let's try and be efficient. And it feels like you're just a tick box sometimes then. And I don't like that prescriptive
and I think part of it is how you present it. If it's a difference of, right, let's all go, that's done and we'll be out the door by 10 compared to, hey, let's all go upstairs and let's all get naked and have some bubbles and let's do that. It's a different take.
Yes.
You're achieving the same thing.
But without feeling like it's a pressure.
Assuming that everyone is on the same page with playing and all that kind of stuff.
But also, I do understand the importance of sleep.
Yeah. And in terms of the excuses for, people and stuff, maybe we need like a random event generator, like an app that and it sends you an email that's like, you are invited to, and you insert name here, you insert, is it a birthday, is it a barbecue, is it a hen do, is it a wedding,
like a Secret Santa generator or something.
Yeah, and you push it and it automatically pings you an email and gives you a photo or something that you can green screen your picture on, so you can say like, hey, look, they had a fun photo booth. Yeah, this is us at Dave's wedding or whatever.
Oh my God, like a Virgin Experience Day, but for the lifestyle.
But like
it presents you with a
So you're like, okay,
fake
you're like
alternative.
Saturday the 12th of October, right? You punch your details in and you say, okay, we're going to, and it gives you a list of, I don't know, 50, 60 different events that you could be. Maybe it's a business awards ceremony for being the best banker or whatever. You put those details in and you punch it out and it's like, hey, it's Mega Bank Corporations invites you to this night out. And then you can show your parents, be like, look, Mum, I've been nominated for this. And then it's also got like a built-in filter thing. So you can take a picture of you looking all fancy in your nice clothes that you're going to the social or whatever it is with.
Wow,
and then
you
it
really thought this
photoshops
through.
the filter around the side and it's like Mega Bank Awards night out or whatever. And then you can send that picture on the night to your folks to say, yes, we're having a great time. This is amazing.
Oh my God.
It's a lot of work, but I reckon
it'd be amazingly successful.
I reckon, like for a small number of people, it would do very, very, very,
Just
very
like
well.
it would be amazing for some people if there was like a crash facility in some places.
Yeah, exactly. So, right, the other downside, keeping the filth on my phone correctly stowed in the loft folder and not in the camera reel, having incredibly hot but absolutely not gym-suitable images flash up on your screen on a Sunday afternoon, and podcasts also playing in the car with the kids in all occupational hazards we put up with. And I think that is
They're
true.
funny, though.
That is funny. That's the very reason why this podcast has a weird sound at the start of it, which is to give you 3 seconds of playtime, panic time to turn it off. And that's why the intro music is still on there, because it's not too
Explicit.
Well, certainly it doesn't start off too explicit,
Right.
and it gives you just a little bit of time to go and unplug your iPhone or whatever it is that you need to do and deal with that. In terms of the pictures, so they know when I go to work, right, they know not to scroll on my phone. I do have to say, and same with our trainer dude. He's like, hey, did you get a picture of that Jaws Lego that Mrs. H bought you? I'm like, yeah, I did. Here is it. Remember,
Don't go right.
Don't scroll, man. Don't scroll. He's like, cool.
At your peril.
And he holds the phone in such a way that
like
he
it's on fire?
Yeah, like he cannot touch the screen at all. For the slightest of movements could upset. It's not true of the phone, but he knows that's there. Same with anyone that picks up my phone. They're like, okay, I'm not gonna
Yes,
scroll.
on you, bud.
But yeah.
You did this yourself.
So now we've got quite a long list of stuff. We've still not finished it all, but these have come from one person.
Wow, okay.
And there's a long list of them, and it won't take you very, very much time to figure out who was sent this long list across.
All right, I'm ready.
But I'm gonna go through the list because I think it's important to recognise some of these things. Remember, these are all challenges that are perhaps surprising or that you've discovered. So ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So the lack of care, acknowledgement and thanks for the hours of work content creators put in for free. The assumption that event organisers are making bank and the guests who don't care to pay their way though they want better events. The people that shit all over other people legitimately trying to do better. Event organisers, club owners that are only in it to get free play with their guests. Banking merchants that shut down businesses and keep their money with no way to have a professional, logical discussion. Unicorns that think they're entitled to cheap tickets. Organisers that treat unicorns like commodities. Anything Queen of Spades, cultural appropriation event themes. Extremely woke people trying to make others feel bad about not doing their lifestyle in the same way as they do. Clubs that never reply to emails and can't act professionally. Creators that take pot shots at each other on social media like children. TV shows that only showcase porn creators as swingers. Performative bisexuality, and then UTIs, thrush, BV, and everything that comes along with vulva ownership and the lifestyle. So we've talked about many of these things. I think it's absolutely, I agree. I agree that many of these things have surprised us, and the amount of it's so interesting. And I'll go out onto social media and I'll engage with people out there in the world, Reddit, for example, and X or Twitter, and to a lesser extent Facebook. We don't have a Facebook account, but it's something that I'll have a think about.
Right.
It's just another thing for me to maintain. But it's like the acknowledgement and thanks for the hours of work that you do. People will just bitch about stuff sometimes. And you're like, well, we've done, club reviews, we've written to people, we've answered emails, we've talked openly about our own problems, we've helped other people, we've interviewed people, we've introduced others to topics like BDSM, like hot wifing, and you'll still get people that will absolutely shit all over it. And it's very difficult. It's very, very demoralizing as a content creator. And so you just don't know what to do with it sometimes. And it does make you want to go, well, fuck this. Let's jack it all in. I don't want to be a target all the time. And I know you have a little bit of it doesn't impact you as much. And also you're not in it as much as I am in the social media trenches. But I totally do understand that. And I get that, particularly when you're not charging people. And yes, I recognise that we have a Patreon,
but we didn't for a long time.
For many years we didn't, and
even now it's not.
It's like £100 a month. It's
minimal really when you think about the amount that it does cost you to run and host the podcast.
And the irony is that'll get put back into an event that we go to, and you know,
it's the thing, isn't
we'll
it?
use it to pay for something nice at the next social, so that we can give guests something cool, because we don't want to charge people the moon to go to a social event. No. So yeah, all of that stuff, and the assumption that we're making bank, we've never made bank on anything. No. It's like literally the most we've made is like £100 on an event.
We do it for the love. We do it for the love, and it sounds really corny, but it genuinely is not a revenue spinner.
Yeah,
at all.
It really isn't. Bed Hoppers is not a money-making scheme.
Out of pocket, if anything.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, just looking at the equipment around this room, we've spent thousands on stuff and hosting and all this kind of thing. So it's that's 100% true. The people that shit all over other people legitimately trying to do better, it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. And, I think people are trying to improve things.
Just be a good person.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot to not be a dick, but then,
Also, it's probably easier to be a dick sometimes for some people.
I think, the anything Queen of Spades, cultural appropriation, event themes, that does give me a little bit of the ick, I think.
I was going to say it can give people the ick a bit.
I think the cultural appropriation stuff, like...
are you thinking like
Cowboys and Indians themes? I think that's... I also get the ick a bit with...
hookers and something... vicars and tarts, I don't know.
Yeah, tarts and vicars. But also I think things like school things.
But
school themes. Back to school is a bit... it feels like, it just doesn't sit well on me, because I know... Why would we dress as children? It's a bit... and I know some people like it. I get this for some people, and I know that we shouldn't, yuck at anyone else's yums, but it just feels a bit...
Say earlier, you like what you like, and you don't like some things. So there you go. And you're allowed to have a preference or an ick about something. Yeah.
And the TV shows that only showcase porn creators as swingers, and I think there's a definite thought process on that. And, we've said the same ourselves. It's very tricky. I think ultimately we're trying to normalize this stuff. And I think people can be given unrealistic expectations of what's there, and also the people they're likely to meet if everyone is the same on these types of shows, like Open House and Playboy Swing and all this sort of stuff. So it's good to have diversity and different backgrounds, body shapes, or whatever being represented. So we've got a few more, but I'm not going to go into too many more. I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it up now.
Cool.
You sure?
Yeah.
You sound really... You're just like, I just want to go to sleep now.
No. I was listening.
You were listening, okay.
To you.
And what we're going to do is, after the music plays, we're going to play a few clips of what people have sent us.
Nice.
Well, maybe one or two. Maybe not be a few, but we'll see.
Yeah, but it's nice that people have taken the time to
I think it's
provide
really... I really enjoyed it. I think, it's really hard not to go down a sort of Room 101 thing. And I think sometimes...
I love a bit of Room 101.
Yeah, I think...
But you're right. It's hard not to just want to throw it all into the void and go, right, that's it, enough. However.
Yeah. Oh, I've got one more. I just want to mention. Dealing with the rock up and fuck guys and meat stick wonders. They're not interested in building friendships, etc. And when they get knocked back, they can at times become aggressive.
Meat stick wonders.
I had to include it just for that wonderful...
Phrase.
What a phrase. There we go. So yeah, I think we've covered some of that one, but I did feel obliged to get it in. What I want to do is say a huge, huge thank you to everyone that sent us some content, who gave us their thoughts and views. Hopefully you found this interesting, or at least recognize some of these issues across the thing. But not to say that this whole thing is awful and that there's so much negativity out there. We just wanted to balance it out a bit.
Yeah, it's good to go into things with your eyes open as well sometimes, and understand that it's not all, as you say, sunshine roses, is it?
No, and I think
just to be mindful of things so you can be prepared.
For every negative here, there is a positive.
Yeah.
And, it's like the not being able to find your tribe. Well, that took fucking ages. But actually, when we did find the tribe,
it was great.
It was amazing. And for every bad single guy out there, there's a quarter of a good single guy. maybe not that ratio, but there are a lot of great single guys. You know, for every club that doesn't charge the right amount per person, there's another one that does.
Yeah.
And it's only because we've seen that when it does work that we're able to go, well, this is a surprising challenge. I think, you know, same with friends. For every friend that we feel that we might lose, there's been one that's stuck around and been fucking supportive. And that's the really cool stuff that's out there. So if you have any thoughts or any surprising challenges that you've met within the lifestyle.
Oh, yeah. It might be one that we've not thought of.
There's, well, I mean, I've got another page of things, of comments from the thing. So we've got a lot that we could still talk about if we need to. But I don't want to become like too moany. It feels like we've done our bit. We've put some of the challenges that are out there. We've talked about some of them, whether we think they're true or not. So let's crack on. Mrs. H, do your thing.
Thank you for hopping into our bed.
Hi, this is Martin from Spice of Life 77. I guess one of the unexpected challenges, something we hadn't really thought about before we got into the lifestyle, was the need to get an STI test. And so that was a little bit challenging. We both started getting the online kits originally. And the big challenge for me there was actually getting blood out of my finger. It was crazy. It took me ages to actually get that to work. But with Kate, her problem was one of the tests came back as inconclusive, so she then had to go into the hospital to have the test there, and they asked all kinds of questions, obviously about how many partners she'd had and whether she'd had anal sex with anyone, and then like have you ever been paid to have sex, have you paid anyone to have sex? And she found that incredibly embarrassing and really kind of put her off the whole thought of having to do that again. Which is obviously, we know it's the right thing to do, but it just felt like a bit of a barrier for us. But yeah, do get tested.
Hi, I'm Secret Vixen.
And I'm Secret Stag. We've been asked to give our little 2 cents of what we feel are the challenges in the lifestyle. Obviously, I think some of them have already been covered, and that's all the costs involved. We knew there was going to be costs involved with the lifestyle, but perhaps that was maybe more than we thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it's so easy when you are in the lifestyle having these fabulous encounters and adventures. You do get carried away. You do get whisked up. And then I think when FOMO hits, and sometimes you kind of have to think, oh no, we'll be all right. It's fine. We can
we'll be okay.
Splash out, and then suddenly you're.
It's only once a year, twice a year. It's no.
Once a month.
So that was something. I think we expected it, but perhaps more than we thought. We did also. That was the car beeping. Don't worry about that. We also had. I think we talked about a previous episode about children and family and friends and balancing us having these great adventures, but then juggling our personal lives as well.
And it's having the whole kind of the guilt, the lifestyle guilt. Because the truth is, there have been times where we have kind of put our family and friends kind of second fiddle to lifestyle activities because we just know we're going to have such a fabulous time with lifestyle friends. And that's not to obviously say we wouldn't have an equally lovely time with our friends and family. But I do sometimes kind of, if a friend contacts me to say, oh, let's meet up, I do find that I'm very quick to look at the calendar and be like, oh, hang on, is that going to clash?
Absolutely a big challenge there for us. But we had a talk, and we think that one of the biggest challenges, at least that we've personally found, is that you have this come down, this sort of lifestyle come down after an event, after an encounter, and we've noticed it. And maybe if you want to go into it yourself, Sigrid, what do you think?
Yeah, so we were saying that it's not that instant. So for us, a highlight of any encounter that we have is actually the kind of the debrief together. I actually really look forward to like our drive back from somewhere if we've been away. I love kind of reliving it and talking about it. But then I find the next day it's almost that post-wedding feeling where you've been building up to this event or this encounter for weeks, possibly months, depending on if kind of calendars can align. And then you have this wonderful evening or whatever. And then I find a couple of days after, when you're back in the mundane of work and life. And
it's the 27th of December to the 23rd to the 30th of December.
Crimbo limbo.
Yes, it's the crimbo limbo of lifestyle. You're like, oh man, we had this incredible experience. We were building up to it for months. We bought the underwear. We sent all the messages. It's really exciting. It happens. It's amazing. And then it's done.
Yeah, and if you haven't already got something then lined up to start looking forward to again, I do find that does become a little bit tricky, and then you kind of have to go through that whole process of building your confidence back up to get back out there. So yeah, I think the crimbo limbo of lifestyle, I think that's actually probably the biggest surprising challenge for
Absolutely.
me.
I think and the longer you leave it between lifestyle encounters, not that you should force encounters or you should rush encounters, but we've often found sometimes if you have a longer gap between these things, that lack of confidence can build again and build even into a greater extent.
Absolutely, particularly for me. I know that my self-esteem is like a roller coaster. If I've had an encounter, it's way up high, and then when there's those gaps in between, it kind of rapidly plummets again, a little bit like Oblivion.
So those,
we're high and then we're low.
Yeah. So those are our thoughts and feelings on this, I think.
Brought to you from Secret Vixen and Secret Stag's car. Sorry for all the noises.
Absolutely. Enjoy.